Welcome to another Nations of Coaches growth series, a higher level of play. We're super excited, coaches, that you've decided to join us. Today, we're going to be posting up with a good one. For the next 45 minutes, we're going to be with Coach Corey Gipson, the outstanding head coach at Austin Peay. And our topic today is going to be a higher level of culture. Good morning, Coach Gipson.
And it's always a pleasure to be with you, Coach.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Doing great. Most of you coaches out there, you know Coach Gipson, but for those of you who might not, he's a husband, married to April, a dad, three children, Jordan, Tanner, and Frankie. Um, just a great family. Corey's entering his third year as the head coach at his alma mater at Austin Peay. Had an incredibly successful 1 year stint as the head coach at Northwestern State before coming to Austin Peay, and assistant coaching stops at Missouri State, where he was the associate head coach, at Austin Peay, at UNC Greensboro, Virginia State, and a very short stint at Furman as an assistant coach. Good stuff, Coach. Good stuff. What a career, and how fast it goes.
I tell you, in this profession, you never know where you're going to end up.
True.
Always a blessing to have any stop because there's just such a small margin for error in being somewhere for an extended period of time. But also it's a blessing to be able to stop somewhere because it's so hard to get on the staff anywhere this day and time.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It is. Today, Coach, we want to talk about culture with you. As I've gotten to know you, I've been so impressed. I got to hear you speak last summer in Nashville. So impressed with your conviction and your certainty on how you want to run a basketball program. It really stood out. I've always believed that clarity brings confidence, and was so impressed in doing our research after meeting you last summer at Northwestern State. Before you, 9 wins. First year, 22 wins. Then at Austin Peay, before you, 9 wins. Your first year, 19 wins, and just a bucket away from the NCAA tournament in the finals of the ASUN. You can't do that without having the ability to change a culture, to have the ability to communicate that culture with certainty, to have the ability to stick with your convictions and to know those. So, Coach, when I say the word culture, what comes to your mind and what does that word mean to you?
Thanks for asking that. That's really a hard question to answer. You take our walk with Christ. Our walk with Christ. Walk with Christ is a global movement.
Mm.
Years ago, when I was young, you used to see people wearing the rubber bracelets that said, "What would Jesus do?"
Mm.
I don't see those as often as I used to. And I think so often in our profession, when it comes to culture, we perceive culture in programs that have the epitome of success in a particular season. If a team wins a championship, we dive into it. You see videos, you see social media outlets. That program has great culture. That might not necessarily be true. And when asked to be on this segment, I want to make sure that I'm not cliche and leading people down a wrong path or something that's cliche. I want to be transparent because these some things that I've experienced in my coaching profession that I've had to help people through when it comes to culture. And if I get long-winded, please stop me and let me know.
You teach, Coach. We want to help coaches across the world grow. And this is such a hot topic right now, particularly with the portal and how you grow a culture. So you just go.
Is it culture if we win a championship, but we're berating our players, we're demeaning our players? Is that culture? But we win a championship.
Mm.
And see, I think we have to really peel the layers when it comes to culture. And I'm very selective in how I communicate about this, but sometimes as coaches, we can be the biggest hypocrites when it comes to culture. We can start to build a culture of do as I say, but not as I do.
Hmm.
We have to be very careful not to do that. I have a very dear friend in the profession that got hired on a particular staff. And let me tell you, he and his family, they were all in. They had kids, they were all in. And he and I would talk early in the morning. I'm an early riser, so sometimes we would talk 5 a.m. in the morning when he was headed to a 6 a.m. meeting with that particular staff. And he was burning the midnight oil recruiting, whether it be online, via phone, or whether it be traveling on the road, or study hall late night hours, or just picking up a player late night, rebounding or shooting with that particular player.
Yeah.
Well, he told me one day, he said, man, he said, my wife wants to know if all this work is in vain.
Mm.
The head coach is always preaching brotherhood and loyalty. And he said, I told my wife, I want to make sure that I'm a true brother and that I'm extremely loyal, because that was the culture supposedly of their program. And he wanted to make sure that he was a living witness of what the head coach had defined.
Mm.
They started to have success. And he said, hey, Gip, he said, man, we having a lot of success right now. He said, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of the year, but we might not be here. He said, I think coach is getting a lot of traction.
Right.
Right? When the season ended, that head coach took another job, a Power 4 job.
Right.
Okay. And my partner called me. He said, man, he said, Gip, I hadn't heard from the head coach
Mm.
since he's been hired. He said, now, my wife at the dinner table the other day, she said, what's up with all the brotherhood and loyalty now that he's gotten a job at a higher level? He said, we haven't heard from him in 2 weeks.
Mm.
And see, I think now, if we were to dive into that program during that time, I think they were perceived as having great culture.
Right.
And they preached that to the student athletes. But is it culture when you help a program become successful, but the brotherhood and the loyalty that was preached and infused to the players by the person that defined it is not being demonstrated to the staff that had to defend it?
Mm.
And that's why I think when it comes to culture, there's a very fine line.
Yes.
Because culture is a way of life, but yet it's a walk, to where we can't just define it as an authority figure. We have to make sure that we're living what we want people to defend for us.
Yes. Good. Love it. When your feet touch down at Northwestern State, your feet touch down at Austin Peay as the head coach. Successful stint as a player, successful stint as an assistant coach, but now Coach Gipson's the guy. You're sitting in the seat. What are 3 or 4 standards that you brought with you to Northwestern State, to Austin Peay, that are non-negotiable for you as you build your culture?
To piggyback off of what I just said, how we started the segment, the people that I hired were the
Mm.
people that helped me along the way
Right.
throughout my whole career. I remain loyal to that. I did not
Yes.
get brand new with those that had helped me with recruitment, that had helped me with advice, that had been with me every step of the way. I didn't say, hey, now I got to hire me somebody that's the best recruiter in the country in this particular region, which sometimes happens. I remained true to who I was, even when I was an assistant coach and associate head coach. I remained true to those who remained true to me. And you realize is that you lose a lot of associates along the way who you might have deemed as friends.
Right.
Because when you get in that head seat, people that you have been associates with, they think that you should have, or You should have hired them, right? And then you start to realize, man, when you peel these layers, you're really in the thick of it now. But when taking the job at Northwestern State University, it became about what would be our compass versus having a GPS turn-by-turn directions. And so the compass of our program became servanthood, brotherhood, and unconditional love. And we also have that same compass here at Austin Peay. Because when you get into the biblical side of it and you get into Peter, it talks about, you know, when we have a gift, we have to use it to serve others. And so that value was instilled in me with my family as a youngster. So I wanted to make sure that that value remained constant as I move forward in the coaching profession. When it came to brotherhood, it was about family, about being equally yoked. So I wanted to make sure that the staff was equally yoked and had the same values that I've always had throughout my life. And then when it came to unconditional love, that is something that I've always felt like my family had for other people. And people say, Gip, what does unconditional love means? Well, to me, it means that you're able to anticipate the needs of others. And I think so often in this profession that we fail to anticipate the needs for others. And so servanthood, brotherhood, and unconditional love, as you can see, even on this boombox here that I have beside me, we have it plastered all around the program. Now, those are just words, but we really work hard to live by that creed.
Yes. So coaches, I hope you're taking notes. This is really good. One of the things you see across the country at those institutions with incredible culture, that the points, the pillars of that culture are verbal and visual. Verbal every day and visual all through the program. And so at Austin Peay, we see that even on a boombox, as the players are shooting on their own late on a Friday night or on a Thursday night, there's servanthood, brotherhood, and unconditional love. And then coaches, write down the word compass, because you assistant coaches, as you're growing to prepare to be a head coach, what is your compass going to be? So coach, you developed that as an assistant coach. You developed that compass. Who were 2 or 3 or 4 of the people that helped you develop the pillars of your culture: servanthood, brotherhood, and unconditional love?
You know, my family has been the best coaches throughout my life. You know, we're fortunate being in this profession that we're called coach, but I truly believe the real coaches are our parents. And I've been very fortunate enough to have parents that coach me as an adolescent, but they're still coaching me throughout my adulthood.
Yeah.
You know, I went to church on Sundays. I went to church on Wednesdays. I lost my mom at the age of 9, but she was a great coach while she was living. My father met with me and my brother after the passing of my mother. And he explained to us that he wanted us to continue to live in a 2-parent household. So he remarried. That's coaching. That's a father that was willing to, you know, serve his children in every way, in the fact that he wanted us to live in a 2-parent household. But that's also putting us in a position to where we understood family, brotherhood, and sisterhood. Because after my father remarried, I have twin sisters that were born through that marriage. So it gave me the familial effect. But then there was also the unconditional love of him understanding the passing of my biological mother, but bringing a new earthly mother into our life and anticipating our needs in advance.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
And so, you know, the best coaches in my life have been my parents, and there have been family members along the way that were extension of my parents. And so, but I also give credence to those who have coached me and those who have mentored me along the way of my life. But I will be doing my parents an injustice saying they haven't been the best coaches in my life.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. We got to make sure as coaches that we're not just coaching our players, but we're also coaching the most, spending the most time with those children that God has entrusted us with, our biological children. That's good. You know, we start talking about culture, and I can begin to see your strategies. They begin to unfold as during this conversation. But what were some of those strategies? How did you implement your culture so quickly at both places that you've been a head coach?
I think the best way to implement a culture is that you have to be your authentic self. The worst thing that we can be in life is not be ourselves, right? When it came to servanthood, brotherhood, and unconditional love, I did not run that by anybody
Right.
because I didn't want anybody to distract me from me being who I am and the compass that I could read, the direction that I wanted to go in. I just had to make sure that I surrounded myself with people that were willing to defend the servanthood, brotherhood, and unconditional love.
Mm,
But I also have to walk it. The best way to get your pillars across, to get your infrastructure in place, to get your culture intact, is that you really have to strive hard to walk the walk. Now, we all fall short.
right.
I think that I've been perfect in any way with trying to uh, put a culture and pillars in place because we're all imperfect beings in an imperfect world. But what I can tell you, anybody that has been around me, they will tell you that I've worked hard at it. For example, we had some success, basketball success at Northwestern State on the floor.
Yes.
I think our biggest success came off the floor, which I don't often talk about and it doesn't often get mentioned. But when the opportunity came about for us to go to Austin Peay State University, it wasn't about Coach Gipson and his family getting the opportunity to go to Austin Peay because I didn't coach any game, any practice, any community service endeavor, etc. by myself. I didn't do any study hall by myself. Okay, the mentoring, the strength and conditioning, etc., the athletic training, the funding, the resources from administration, etc., that was a village effort
Right.
encompassed by everyone. So when this opportunity came about to go to Austin Peay, I met with my staff, the whole staff, and I said, hey, this has been presented to us, not to me. And so the whole staff from Northwestern State came to Austin Peay with me, including all of my graduate assistants. And then they got promoted into other roles on the staff because they had received their graduate degrees. But I said it to say that I have to walk the walk of servanthood, brotherhood, and unconditional love for the culture to remain intact when I transition to a different zip code. Had I transitioned to the 931 from Louisiana, but did not bring my staff with me, okay, how can I say and express brotherhood to the new staff and the new team? And I didn't think the staff that helped me get to this place was good enough to come with.
Mm, love it. So part of your culture is loyalty, coach. Part of your what your pillars that you've talked a ton about loyalty. I love that. It's one of my favorite things in the coaching profession is to loyal to those who have helped you get where you are and loyal to those who have been your mentors. And it's not loyalty temporarily, it's loyalty for life.
Absolutely.
And I've heard you talk about culture, authenticity of living it before our players, but even living it before our staff.
Yes.
So, coach, talk to us just a minute or two, or however long you want to, about the importance of your staff being the defenders of your culture, the enforcers of your culture. Hey, look, Coach Gipson believes in this now. This is a non-negotiable with him. Those conversations from a staff member, how do you get that done? And what are some steps that along the way that you ask your staff to help you with the defending of that culture?
I think trust comes in. They trust me.
Hmm.
You know, the fact that we had success together and able to transition with me, they trust me. You know, nobody can say that Gip left anybody behind at the end of the day, right? I still have things I have to work on in my life, but they understand that I'm an imperfect being, and we understand that making mistakes is our birthright. But even when it comes to my staff, what would Jesus do when it comes to hiring a staff and getting people to defend the culture, right? Now, so oftentimes we read the Bible, we can regurgitate it, we can recite it, but are we really understanding what happened during those times? You look at Jesus' disciples. What was Peter? And the Bible talks about how Jesus said, the rooster will crow. But he said, you will deny me 3 times.
Right.
And so with that being said, I think sometimes as coaches, when we get in positions, we think we have to make the perfect slam dunk hire. When I look at the disciples, I don't think Jesus made any slam dunks.
Yeah. Amen. Truth.
You understand?
Truth.
You look at Matthew. Matthew was a cheating scoundrel, cheating people out of taxes, etc. And so when it comes to hiring my staff, and that's why I'm harping on the fact of everybody coming with me, because I want everybody to understand this, is how can you have success with somebody, but when you get another job, they're not good enough? Jesus selected people that were killers, cheaters, denied him, and they were still good enough. But true culture, I'm gonna say something about true culture. How can somebody be under our helm as an authority figure and they don't grow under us after being with us an extended period of time? They don't grow under us to be able to transition with us. Now I'm about to start preaching now.
Preach. I love it.
So how can we coach a team, but we haven't coached a staff that has been under our helm? So when it comes to selecting a staff in regards to culture, we select imperfect beings that need to be able to grow under us. But as they grow under us, they are the best ones to defend what we have defined.
Yes.
And after that happens, you can see the players demonstrating it on the court and off the court.
Yes. So, coach, you just said gold. You just said something that's gold. Defend what you have defined. Do you spend time with your staff with reminders on what we're defending at Austin Peay? Do you defend? Is it visual and verbal? How do you do that? How do you continually defend by defining with your staff the culture that you want implemented to your players?
The first thing that I try to do is walk to walk without religiously having the conversation about it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna say this, but I'm not saying this to try to say that I'm better than somebody else. Okay, like I don't drink. Okay, that's not something that I do. My family never drank around me. Okay, so that's something that has been instilled in me.
Right.
Okay, my children will never see me drink. That's something that I want to happen between me and my wife. Okay, now with that being said, the fact that I don't drink, my staff doesn't do it around me. Okay, but that also gives me a safe haven to where I probably don't have to worry about my staff getting a DUI.
Mm.
Because when we have staff meetings or when we go out as a staff to have dinner, etc., that doesn't happen around me. Now, what they do on their own time, what they do in their own home, okay, that's between them and the Lord. I don't know where the Lord stands with that. I don't condemn anybody for doing that. But because I walk that walk, I think they try to emulate that. I don't smoke. Okay. So my staff doesn't smoke around me. You know, I'm not trying to get that next puff. And so I think it gives a level of discipline to those that are in my circle. Now, what I can tell you about what I just said is this, is that I've been on staffs before where all of that happened and you can fall short of peer pressure.
Right.
I've been on staffs where every third word was a curse word. And you know what happens when you're around that on a consistent basis?
Right.
You start to curse. And so I try to walk a walk to where my staff can emulate it, even though we may fall short, but at least we're trying to be consistent. But I'm trying to be the living witness and the living example.
Mm-hmm.
Because the best
Yes.
Bible somebody can read is you. And so I try to give them a Bible to read from my flesh more so than me regurgitating the scripture or some cliche verse. But outside of that, I just try to be the best version of myself. And I'm so fortunate that I have a staff that respects me for who I am, that appreciates me for who I am, and they don't try to crucify me when I make mistakes and when I'm at fault.
For sure. For sure. So coaches, write it down. The best way to defend the culture, to have your assistant coaches, and I'm speaking to the head coaches now, is to live that in front of them. Consistently live that in front of them. And then it's amazing how that filters down to the players because the standard that is set. Consistency is so important. Clarity is so important. Certainty is so important. There's culture killers, coach. You've seen them as a head coach. You've seen them as an assistant coach. Culture's moving along, making progress. Here's a culture killer. What are those?
I don't treat any young man any differently than how I would treat my own. I don't. Uh, I've seen that happen throughout my life. I've seen that happen throughout my times in the profession. I think those are culture killers. I think sometimes when it comes to, as coaches saying culture killers, when we have a lack of success, we blame it on assistant coaches and we blame it
Mm,
on the players.
mm,
And we very seldom take fault. And a lot of times we are the ones that are at fault. And I think that a lot of times head coaches are the biggest culture killers because it can be do as I say, not as I do.
right,
But another culture killer can be is that when a head coach defines something, it has to be defended by the staff.
right,
It's paramount. It has to be. As a head coach, I have to be able to trust on a consistent basis, 365 days a year, that my staff is going to defend the pillars of the program. Now, the other thing we have to do is that sometimes as coaches, we want to prematurely select the captains of a program
mm,
because we want to dictate and control that narrative, if you will. Sometimes the person that we select is not the person that the roster has deemed the leader.
right,
That's a culture killer also. We have to make sure that we select the right person that can carry the torch. And it's not always the person that we're comfortable with to carry the torch and be deemed the person that can defend the pillars of the program. But
right,
your staff has to defend the pillars, and you have to find a select group of guys on that roster that's also defending the pillars because as coaches, we can't always be in the locker room. We're not always on the back of the bus. We're not with the guys when they're hanging out in the community. So there has to be some checks and balances in place with who you deem as captains that can defend the pillars and the culture of the program.
Absolutely. It's so important. We could do a whole podcast on selecting captains. And because you're empowering that group and they have to defend the culture. They have to be totally bought in, and it's not always the best player. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And that is a major mistake to choose captains for any other reason except for they're the best to lead. And then you talked about consistency as a head coach, and you hit again of you defining and the assistant coaches defending. And there's your leadership team. There's the head coach, the assistant coach, and your captains. And if everybody's on the same page and it's clearly defined, clarity brings confidence, clarity brings certainty. It's clearly defined, then that culture is going to have a chance. You have a tremendous character coach, Coach Gipson. What is the role that you allow your character coach to have in defending your culture, building your culture, defining your culture?
I call him Coach Harris, Pastor Robert Harris.
Yes.
His role is to continue to be his authentic self.
Mm.
He was so pivotal in mentoring me when I was a young student athlete here at Austin Peay State University. I always said that when I became a head coach, that he would be the character coach of the program. The reason being is that he never tried to Bible whoop me when I was a student athlete. And so I was always able to be organic with him because he never tried to be holier than thou with me. And
Mm.
I respected that about him. So I trusted that about him when he became the character coach at Northwestern State University and here at Austin Peay, is that I knew he would be his authentic self. I knew he wouldn't try to be holier than thou, but yet he also knew how to stay in his lane.
Right.
He's not trying to prove that he can coach basketball. He's not trying to prove that he could play back in the day. He's just here to serve as best he can. Now, back in the day, he was a very good player.
Mm.
He could really play. He's well known in his community for being able to play, but he made some bad decisions that he's not ashamed to discuss and be transparent about. And I think so often in our profession, we don't give the true depiction of what's really going on. Like I mentioned, my buddy who didn't get a chance to transition with the staff. We don't talk about that. We only talk about the majority of the good. Well, Pastor Harris used to be a heroin addict, used to be a crack addict. Okay? But see, when he mentions this to the team, and we have somebody who may have a family member that's going through that, a parent that's going through that, they immediately gravitate to him because they say, hey, this is a character coach that understands my background, that understands my struggle, not somebody trying to give me a message, but has never been through what I'm still going through and what I have to
Right.
grow through.
Yes. Yes. It's great. Coach Harrison, I love how you call him coach. Um, Coach, that's amazing. When you hear when you listen to you talk, it's always the same. There's such a consistency in your conviction. There's such a certainty in what you believe, and there's a passion that just flows out of you. Coaches who are listening, culture is it's got to be real. It's got to be authentic. It's got to be clearly defined. It's got to be visual and verbal. And it's got to permeate through the entire program in every area. And consistency for our head coaches who are listening, the consistency that coach has mentioned of you walking out your culture. They're your players, coaches, are deciding each day if this is worth belonging to. And one of the greatest uh, weapons to help a young man decide that this is worth giving my heart to. This is worth hurting for. This is worth conditioning, the weightlifting, the mornings, the travel. It's worth it, is if they see a consistency in leadership. As soon as that consistency starts to break down, then the players in their mind naturally will say, is this worth belonging to? Belonging is after culture, the next probably most important word is belonging. And so, Coach, I love servanthood, brotherhood, unconditional love. So, coaches, as you were taking notes, those three things might not be yours. That's okay.
That's right.
Create your own sound culture pillars and live by them. Coach, this has been amazing. I have learned, I've taken fully 2 pages of notes. Every time I hear you speak, I walk away with things to think about, to things that I've learned. I appreciate your conviction. I appreciate your strength and your certainty. Austin Peay and the players there are blessed. And I'm very thankful that you would take time this morning out of your very busy schedule, moving and shaking now 12 months a year, coaches. We're moving and shaking 12 months a year with great urgency, all months. And Coach, thank you for taking time to teach us. We learned a lot. And so, coaches, if you were watching and you wanted to reach out to Coach Gipson, what would be the best way if they had questions, if they wanted to come watch a practice, if they wanted to just talk to you further? What would be the best way to reach out to you, Coach?
I would say that you can always reach me via email, but if they want to reach me, they can reach out to you, and you can extend my cell number to them.
Okay.
And I would love to talk to them via phone, via email, and they can also come to any practice. We always have an open door policy. So any way possible that's convenient for them, I'll extend myself. And if it's a situation where we can meet up somewhere, I'm more than willing to do that also.
Absolutely. So my cell number is 843-509-3824, coaches. You text me or call me anytime. And then I will connect you with Coach Gipson. And you'll be able to ask him more questions and get an opportunity to visit with him. Thank you for being with us, coaches. At Nations of Coaches, our sincerest desire is to help you grow, to help you come to know the master coach, Jesus Christ, so that all that you influence as coaches will benefit from your excellence. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you again, Coach Gipson. We wish you the very best in the upcoming season. Coaches, we love you. Communicate with us. We want to hear from you. Nationsofcoaches.com. Reach out to me if there's any way that we can help. Thank you so much.